You are listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Megan and Alex of Zesty Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you have come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, we use the 4 phases of the feminine cycle in combination with functional lab work to transform the lives of the women we work with. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your own doctor before making changes. Ready to take control of your health? Let's get started.
Hi there, welcome back to class 4 of our podcast. Thank you so much for joining me once again. We are going to get into the real good stuff today, so I'm super excited. Hopefully you are too. We are going to talk about the first phase today. We're going to talk about physiology, what's going on, how you will likely feel based on what is happening inside the body naturally. And the whole point of going through this is not that you become doctors or whoever and trying to understand the body, but the whole point is if you understand your body and what it's trying to do, you can work with it instead of working against it. And that is the whole point of understanding. Now, I am going to end this class with some action items. However, once we get through all of the phases and the discussion of what they are, then I will go back through the phases and do different sort of action steps that are specific for each of the phases. And so there will be a lot more action items, but I first wanted to go through each of the 4 phases and give you guys a very clear understanding of what is happening so that you know without me telling you how something fits into that, right? So Megan and I's whole goal is not that you come work with us and you need us for the rest of your life. Our whole point is that you come to us, we teach you, and we give you the tools to understand your body, and then you spend basically the rest of your life getting better and better and better at being you. And so then you're more comfortable, like everything will start to flow more easily. But the idea is that not that you have to have everything answered externally for you, it's that you will make those executive decisions. And unfortunately in medicine, with the start of patriarchal medicine in the last century, it was all you don't listen to yourself, you go visit someone and they tell you what to do. And obviously that's shifting now. Like you can see that happening in medicine as we go anyways. Like people just they'll shop around for doctors. They'll look for someone that wants to work with them, not just like tell them what to do. But there's still a lot of prevalent stuff in our society in terms of like prescribed diets. Like people don't figure out what works for them. What they do is say, I'm going to pick an external diet and I'm going to eat like that. So whether that's paleo or vegan or whatever it is. And what we're all about is actually just saying, well, forget what anyone else is telling you have to do. It's more about here's everything that goes into it, and then you make those decisions. It's a lot more empowering to come from that place instead of feeling like the way that you're eating, for example, 'cause there's lots of other things, the way that you're eating is determined by someone else. And if you mess up, it's like you did your homework wrong or something. Like that's just not our goal. And so for that reason, sorry, that was a total tangent, but basically that's why we're so into explaining what's going on so that you understand, and for the rest of your life, you know how everything's going to fit into a phase. Okay. So I'm going to do this in each of the 4 following classes, but we'll just do an overview so that you get more and more comfortable with the lingo. So the 4 phases of the female cycle, we'll start with phase 1. That's the release phase, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Then the second phase is the rise phase, and then third phase is the release, and then, it's the plateau, and then the pause. Okay? Release, rise, plateau, pause, over and over and over again. I won't go into details because I talked about it in the last class, so head on over there if you haven't. But basically, if you have questions on when to start counting, how to break up the phases, that is all in class 3. So just refer back to that. I'm going to speak here as if you already know that. So make sure you go back if you need to. So release phase, let's talk about it. The release phase starts on day 1, and it has a sub phase to it, and that is the dark sub phase. And so that is day 1, 2, and 3 of however long your release phase is. And those are just, we wanted to highlight special days because they're special for the body. So the point of the release phase, as far as you're physiologically concerned, is that you are setting up a lot of the next cycle. And you'll actually see that, the last part of the previous cycle was leading up to it too. But since we have to start somewhere, this is going to kick off a lot of what your body believes is going on, and the evolutionary stuff like, hey, am I safe enough to try to have a baby right now, is the question that your body is always answering, whether your brain is answering or not. And so it's making decisions of, what's worth doing now and worth not doing now all the time. But this is a crucial phase where the start of a cycle is set up, and it will determine how the rest of your cycle goes. And so this phase actually asks us to slow down, to rest, and to do some very careful introspection about what we are feeling, what we're experiencing, and then making executive decisions consciously on what you want to impact going forward. So that normal drive that we have, where like there's tons of memes and jokes like, oh, like my period started, like eat everything, lay on the couch, like PJs and Netflix time, like they're actually onto something. Like there's a reason all women in the world tend to feel that way, and it's not because all of a sudden all the women in the world are like, dang, got my period, now I'm lazy. It's because your body, there's this, you can think of it as winter, right? Things are in the winter, you look out, it looks like everything's calm, it's icy, you don't see things coming up out of the ground, but underneath there's actually a lot happening. Like the earth uses that time, that's why there's seasons, to rest, regenerate, plan, kind of like rebuild power, and then spring comes and everything just comes flying out and blooming and everything's like ready. Okay, so that's how you can think of it. This is our winter time, and it's good, and you should take advantage of your body's request to slow down. So especially those first 3 days, we like to treat those 3 days as like, this is our time. This, I can retreat. And we've had ladies, they'll even go do the full red tent thing where they go to their spare bedroom away from their partners, and they have those 3 days where they have like a little mini retreat. They like burn their candles, they do all the stuff that their husbands are like, oh, that's weird, like all your private stuff that you kind of just want to do in peace. They just like take that time, and that's kind of an extreme way to do it, but if that's what you want to do, then that's what you're gonna do. The whole point is to get quiet and introspective enough that you listen and can begin to learn the voice of your own internal guidance, because that's a little bit of a superpower that women have, right? It was women's intuition. It's kind of a known thing. Like women at that point in their cycle are, like we talked about in the first class, left to right brain hemisphere communication is enhanced in women at that time. So just physiologically, that's already happening. You can either ignore it and not know what's going on, or you could take advantage of it and use it to make your life better. Either way, it's going to happen. So it really, like, to your body, it doesn't care whether you are changing stuff or not. It's more just, I'm going to do this anyways. That's what I'm scheduled to do this now. And so obviously it's better to take advantage of it. And so those 3 days, and really the bulk of the release phase, is all about planning and getting into a resting, quiet mode so that we can begin to feel what we may need. Because you're not looking to have the next 10 cycles mapped out. You just need to know the next step so you can do that. And then the next step after that becomes clear. And then the next step and the next step. And you learn and you go, but you're guided by your own internal voice and not someone else being like, do this supplement, check out this new weight loss thing, oh, do this thing, oh, try this guy, do this thing, that's the time to slow down. And so sometimes we can feel a sense of loss, and that brings up, sometimes people feel a little bit sad. Now, part of that can be PMS, and that's a hormonal dysfunction, right? But sometimes it's natural to feel a sense of loss. And the reason we called this phase the release phase is because you are consciously choosing to release certain things. Like we talked about in previous classes, if you have a belief that you're sick, you can't wear that mask of a sick person and then also be a healthy person. Like, you have to pick which one you commit to being. And there is a certain continuum to it just because it's life, but you can't believe that you're a sick person and believe that you're a healthy person, right? And so this period of time, that gentle introspection that you do, can allow you to think on and dig into some of these beliefs. And that's why you'll see the movement goals that we have for this phase, the rituals that we recommend at this phase, the mental work that you'll do will all be in relation to this and getting to figuring out what you need at this particular time. Physiologically, your hypothalamus, pituitary, and ovaries are all in gearing up mode. And so while on the outside it may look like there's not much going on, your ovaries are super busy at this time. So this is when the hypothalamus and pituitary begin to tell the ovaries that it is time to start maturing eggs. So at each cycle, you actually start bringing up maturing follicles, and there will be, 8 to 10 of them, depending on what's going on for you. Obviously, they kind of decrease as you age. But the idea is that this time there's a recruitment of all these follicles, and then one is going to win out, and that will ultimately go on to ovulate. And that same follicle will go on to produce the progesterone that you need. Okay, so and also a signal for estrogen. And so that's kind of the bigger overview, but that's what's happening. Even though it's that quiet phase, there's still a lot going on. And that's why all of the maturation of those follicles and that time that you have of rest is allowing your body to do a really good job of recruiting those follicles, and that's how that determines the little blueprint for that cycle. All right, and so it's very important that we not pretend like, getting our period doesn't matter, let's pretend like it doesn't exist. There's actually very important actions that your body are doing at this point. Even more complicated is all the ways that our endocrine system interfaces with this. So the normal hormone signaling that creates that pathway of recruiting follicles and eggs also will determine things like blood sugar regulation, which is important for PCOS and everyone else. It helps talk to the liver in terms of metabolism of hormones and the metabolism of hormone mimicking substances that you may come in contact with. It interfaces with inflammation, right? And so you're having your period, that's a controlled inflammatory response. There's lots of signaling that goes into play to make sure that it's a localized inflammatory response and not something that causes you to have widespread. That's why, hormonal migraines and hormonal acne all get a lot worse at this time, because there is kind of a spiraling out of control and inflammation responses going on that isn't getting the correct signals. So if you change those signals, you change what that outcome ends up being. So here's our thing. During the release phase, you're releasing the old, you're getting ready to think and consider what you want your life to be like next, okay? And so this is the time to slow down in all of our rituals. When I circle back around after we talk about the physiology, after I circle back around, we'll get to all of the goals, the movement, rituals, and mental work that you're going to do, okay? Let's go on to some homework though, because this homework is kind of fun. And actually, I'm going to say this about all of the phases, but since the release phase, your first homework is just to understand that it's a time for slowing down. So that is going to be at the top, and then the rest of the homework is going to go under it, okay? So one thing that is a really delicious thing to add, and I'm actually drinking it now, is tart cherry juice. So you can make yourself a little elixir of a tablespoon of tart cherry juice, a little squeeze of lime, and then 12 ounces of water. So, and that is a great thing to incorporate for lowering and controlling inflammation. You can also, I have what's called the dark transition elixir. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Is you take the tart cherry juice, a tablespoon, and then a scoop of collagen peptides, and then water, and you mix it, and that is the most amazing recovery drink ever. So whenever I'm feeling depleted, especially during that dark moon phase, when I just want nourishment and support and comfort, that is my go-to, because it's so nourishing to the cells and everything in so many ways, okay? The other thing that I'm going to give you as homework this phase is that you're going to work on incorporating some more probiotics. So the people listening to this, I have no idea where you're at. You could be like, you've eaten whole food for the last 7 years, or you could just be getting started. So it doesn't matter where you are, but what I want you to do is think about how you can expand whole food or supplemental probiotics. My favorite probiotic, and Megan's too, is Megaspore Biotic. It's a practitioner only one, so if you want to email us, support@zesty.ginger, we order it. There's other practitioners out there that have it, so you don't have to come to us, but we'd be happy to send it to you. Megaspore Biotic. We also really like Prescript Assist. That's also a spore-based probiotic, and that one you can get off Amazon, so you don't need us for that. And then there's a probiotic called Saccharomyces boulardii. It's actually a yeast strain. I love it for gut health stuff. For a lot of people, obviously probiotics can be tricky for people with things like SIBO. So obviously, I'm giving general information. I don't know what's happening with you personally, but you want to add a little bit of something new that is nourishing to your gut, because our gut largely determines the inflammatory response and how that plays into our overall health, especially hormone health. So those are our 3 favorite probiotics. I actually like adding the Saccharomyces boulardii in with one of the other 2, so either the Megaspore Biotic or Prescript Assist, but that combination has done really well, and as someone with celiac, I can relate to them, especially the Megaspore one. That's favorite, and it's actually been studied on people with celiac disease and has helped with like flora quality and quantity, and so that's one I really like. So that's if you want to go ahead and do supplement. Otherwise, small quantities of kombucha, of kefir, of what else is fermented, sauerkraut, all of those sources of food, coconut, yogurt, whatever you can handle, do a little bit. The other option that doesn't totally count as a probiotic but works in the same way is prebiotics. So prebiotics are great because they basically increase the food that your good bacteria gets. And so for that, I learned this from Chris Kresser, but you make white potatoes, however, boil them, bake them, and then you reheat them at sort of until they're like warm but not hot. And then that is a source of prebiotics that, while probiotics have shown to increase the strains that are around, probiotics alone aren't great at kind of rebuilding and having things stick around. So it's like when you're taking the probiotics, it helps. When you stop, it goes away. When you add prebiotics, you basically make your gut a better environment, and they tend to stick around. So you get longer impact. So any one of those, pick whatever works for you and start working on some of that information. And then the other thing is caffeine. And I know it like breaks my heart to even say this, because as a medical person, the hospital runs off coffee. So I have quit caffeine about 18 million times. But it's really important if you're first, at first pass, if you're impacting inflammation, to start considering how caffeine is impacting you and the role that it plays. So basically, the way that I look at caffeine is that it is a supplement. It is not just another drink that I can drink whenever. It's an actual supplement that I use wisely. And if you go on our blog, zestyginger.com/blog, go to the search bar and just type in caffeine. I have my protocol for how I transition off of caffeine slowly and methodically and it's a really nutrient way to do it, because you're incorporating different types of teas. And so for both increasing nutrients and cutting down caffeine, it's a really fun protocol. So go on the blog, check that out. But either way, just start thinking about it. If you don't do caffeine, my challenge to you in terms of impacting inflammation positively is actually beginning to broaden your intake of different types of teas. And so check out different types. Nettle teas are really mineral rich, supportive, inflammation controlling tea. That's super great. Raspberry leaf tea is great for this time in your cycle. Although, check with all of these plants, like make sure that you don't react poorly or like have allergies. Dandelion root can sometimes, although that's more of a detox one, but I still like it as well for this phase. Just try to broaden your tea intake to different plants, because they each are very individualized in their constituents, and what you're providing then is a broader trace mineral dose to your body, and then that makes inflammatory processes work that much more smoothly. Here's the deal. In the body, whenever you ask for something to happen, you're always asking for biochemical reactions to occur. Biochemical reactions need cofactors, minerals, vitamins, basically nutrients, to power these reactions. When we don't have something, then the body either A, doesn't do it if it's kind of bonus, or it tries to work around it by going through a series of other steps. But either way, when you do that, when you're already deficient, then you end up being really inefficient in your biochemical reactions, and you burn through more of your stores. So it's a really bad negative spiral that you get into, where once you're down on your nutrients, your body gets worse and worse and worse at carrying out the biochemical reactions that it needs to stay healthy and stay alive. And so by broadening our intake of nutrients in any sort of way, especially through teas, spices, veggies, fruits, whatever we have at our disposal, then we're basically just being like, here you go, here's fuel. Here you go, here's fuel. Fuel for everything. Fuel makes it better. Like, you're a really fancy machine. Your machine needs fuel to run. And so by broadening out your intake, you're basically supporting your body in all those different ways. And it's really kind of, I almost feel like feels like it's cheating, because you're like, wait, I get to eat all this other stuff, and it's that, like, and I'm improving all of these facets of my health. Like, it really almost seems like too good to be true, but really, if you think about it, that's exactly what your body needs. That's exactly what it's asking for. Okay, so that is your homework. Hopefully you have something to go out and do while you're in your release phase. Make sure that you're taking time to honor yourself, making sure your time to honor your emotions. We will talk about all of this again when we circle back around to the lesson about the release phase, rituals and all of that. But in the meantime, make sure that you're allowing that voice, internal voice, to speak, and you're allowing her to come out and guide you further along the path that you want to go. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. Thank you so much. It's been so fun getting to do this for you guys. So stop on by, say hi to us on Instagram. We're zesty_ginger. And let us know if you've been implementing the stuff off this class, and let us know how it's going. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, thanks for stopping by this Podclass. If you are ready to dig deeper into your health, really understand your cycle, stop guessing with random supplements, and start testing, our Healthy Hormones group starts September 27th. You can find more details at zestyginger.com/healthy hormones and find out if this is the place for you. And as always, we offer free 20-minute consultations, so jump on the phone with us and we'll help you decide if it's a good fit.